Good evening, everyone. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that two major global currencies you thought you could trust have just collapsed. Your savings, your investments, your entire financial world turned upside down in a matter of hours. Now stop imagining, because today we're going to talk about a scenario many experts believe is not just imagination, but a very real possibility in 2025, namely the risk of collapse for the Iraqi Dinar (IQD) and the Vietnamese Dong (VN). If you hold any foreign currency investments, or if you're just curious about global economics and what could hit the financial world next, you need to stay with me for the next 20 minutes. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening, why experts are sounding the alarm, and most importantly, how this could impact your financial future. First, let's clarify what we're dealing with. The Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong are both currencies from nations that have drawn speculative interest from thousands of individual investors around the globe. The pitch has been simple: buy these currencies now while they're cheap, wait for a massive revaluation, cash out and make a fortune. Some promotions out there promise returns of 10,000% or 100,000% overnight. Sounds too good to be true? It probably is. But the reason we're discussing them today is not because we believe that fantasy, but because there are underlying economic and structural risks that make these currencies vulnerable to collapse, not just revaluation. And that's exactly why you need to pay attention. Let's start with the Iraqi dinar. Iraq is a country rich in natural resources, particularly oil. Yet, despite these resources, the economy faces severe structural problems. Political instability has lasted more than 2 decades. Infrastructure remains weak. Corruption remains high. These aren't small issues. They strike at the core of any healthy economy. According to recent reports, Iraq's foreign currency reserves are under strain, and the government budget remains heavily dependent on oil revenues. When your currency is tied to an economy that is fragile or unstable, you are exposing yourself to extreme risk. For example, oil dependency. Estimates show that over 90% of the Iraqi government's revenue comes from oil exports. That means if global oil prices fall, or if production is disrupted, the budget collapses, which in turn puts pressure on currency stability. The dinar is not backed by a broadly diversified economy. It's very much exposed to one commodity. That same dependency is what makes collapse possible, not just slow decline. Imagine oil revenue plunging, public salaries delayed, foreign reserves drained, then the government might face no choice but to devalue the currency. Let's review some recent signs. In 2025, the government ended its long-standing dollar auction system and switched to a system requiring local banks to deposit dinars with foreign correspondent banks. The aim was to reduce manipulation and increase transparency, but the shift also indicates stress when systems change under pressure. Also, foreign reserves have been reported to drop from around 105 billion down to under 97 billion in early 2025. Dinar valuation. Blogspot.com. When a currency's backup reserves drop, the risk of sharp depreciation increases. Now let's move to the Vietnamese dong. On the face of it, Vietnam looks stronger than Iraq. The country has seen steady growth, manufacturing expansion, and has become a major player in Southeast Asia. But the dong story is different. The government has been very clear they are not intending a major, spontaneous revaluation. They keep the currency tightly managed to support exports. A sudden surge in the dong's value would hurt the country's competitiveness, making its goods more expensive overseas. In short, the narrative of a big windfall gain for speculative dong investors is at odds with the nation's stated policy. Why is this important now? Because global economic conditions in 2025 create a perfect storm for currency risk and potentially collapse. Rising interest rates in major economies are pulling investment money away from developing markets. Trade tensions are rising, supply chains are shifting, inflation concerns are mounting. For currencies like the dinar or the dong, those that carry structural vulnerabilities, this kind of environment spells danger. Pressure builds, investors pull out, reserves shrink, confidence drops. And when confidence drops, a currency can lose value rapidly. consider what a currency collapse actually looks like, not just a gradual slide, but a sharp, painful drop. A recent comparison is the Turkish lira. In 2021, it lost over 40% of its value in a short window. Businesses, individuals, entire livelihoods were suddenly exposed. Currency collapse means you wake up and your purchasing power is decimated. And it's not just the investors, it's the whole economy. Imports get more expensive, inflation jumps, banks may restrict withdrawals, people panic. That is the kind of scenario some experts fear could hit Iraq's dinar in 2025. Let's break down specific warning signs for the dinar in 2025. 1. Oil production and export revenue. If oil prices drop or exports are disrupted, Iraq's budget is directly affected. That weakens the dinar. 2. Foreign reserve levels. As noted earlier, reserves have been falling. If they fall too far, the ability to defend the currency falters. 3. Large fiscal deficits and rising debt. The International Monetary Fund worries that Iraq's deficits could widen to 7.6% of GDP in 2024 and debt could hit 54.6% of GDP by 2025. Iraqi Dinar net, that's not a stable platform for a currency you hope will strengthen. And 4. Regional spillovers. Iraq is in a volatile region. Neighboring currency collapses matter. One recent report noted that when Turkey, Iran, or Syria suffer, the impact spills over into Iraq's imports and reserves. Aid by? Calm now, consider the scenario. Suppose you hold a chunk of dinars or dong, banking on a massive revaluation. But what if instead of that revaluation you face a collapse or a forced devaluation? You wake up and find that the value of what you bought has dropped, not climbed. The liquidity might dry up. The exchange rate might worsen. The government might impose controls. The paper you hold becomes far less valuable. And if you had taken this as a sure thing, you're in trouble. That's why we're using the word collapse, not just correction, because collapse signals a major, rapid, confidence-driven loss, not just a gradual drift. It's important we address the role of social media and online communities here. For years, the dinar and dong have been subject to speculative hype forums, YouTube channels, newsletters promising, just wait for the RVs'll revalue. Many people invested on hope rather than fact. According to Reddit threads, dozens of users say they were promised exponential returns from dinar revaluation, only to be met with silence. Reddit plus a 1, that's not just harmless optimism, it's dangerous. Because when reality diverges from hope, the crash can be sudden and devastating. So what are experts saying now? Many analysts are sounding caution. For the Iraqi dinar, one investment analysis firm notes that while reforms are underway, the currency remains a speculative and high-risk investment. In 2025, the prospects for significant appreciation are limited. EBC Financial Group, another report from May 2025, shows significant fluctuations in the dinar-dollar exchange rate, driven by political and structural factors, not just speculation. Iraq Business News. Calm the message, don't count on overnight miracles. Count on structural realities. Let's talk about what collapse means for everyday people, and not just for speculators. If the dinar collapses, Iraq's imports become more expensive. Everything from fuel to food to medicine could cost more. Citizens may face unemployment as businesses struggle with instability and inflation. For foreign holders of the dinar, people who bought it expecting a windfall, their investment may become illiquid or worthless. For global supply chains, especially those tied to Iraqi oil and related industries, the shock could spread. Currency collapse isn't just bad for investors, it's bad for economies. What about the Vietnamese dong? While it's not under as dire a spotlight as the dinar, it still carries risk. Because the Vietnamese government maintains strict control over its currency, foreign investors seeking to bet on a huge revaluation could be disappointed. The policy environment is about stability and supporting exports, not about sending the dong soaring. If external pressures mount, such as supply chain disruptions, rising labor costs, stronger regional competition, the dong could face depreciation rather than appreciation. So for investors, the assumption will go up a lot is misguided. For both currencies then, the key takeaway is these are speculative bets, not safe stores of value. If you hold dinars or dong, you should ask yourself, could I afford to lose most of this investment? because collapse is possible. And if your savings, retirement fund, house down payment, or emergency fund is tied up in such a risk, they are in danger. Safe investment principles suggest that you diversify, focus on stability, and keep speculative exposure limited. Let's outline some practical steps for you. First, review your holdings. If you own large amounts of dinar or dong, assess how critical those holdings are for your life. Next, don't pretend you'll win big just because the price is low. That's the gambler's fallacy. Just because something has been down long doesn't guarantee it will go up. Next, put a cap on your risk. Many advisors say currency speculation should be no more than 5% of your total portfolio. And lastly, stay informed. Watch oil prices, government budget announcements, reserve levels, exchange rate policy changes. For Iraq, these are red flags. If oil stays low, if reserves drop, if budget deficits grow, they all signal potential trouble. What should you specifically watch for in 2025? For Iraq, monitor oil production numbers and export revenue. If output falls or oil price drops significantly, the dinar is at risk. Watch for announcements of devaluation or redenomination of the IQD. Monitor foreign reserves. If they continue to fall, that's a major warning. For Vietnam, keep an eye on manufacturing output, export data, labor cost trends, and trade policy. If exports falter or competitiveness slips, expect pressure on the dong. Also watch for government statements about currency policy. If they say they don't want to revalue, that means investors hoping for a big jump may be disappointed or even risk a slide instead. Now let's walk through a hypothetical scenario. Suppose you bought $10,000 worth of Iraqi dinars 5 years ago, expecting a huge revaluation. Today, the dinar hasn't risen significantly. Instead, oil revenue is flickering, reserves are down, the government is under fiscal pressure. You're faced with a choice: hold on hoping for a miracle or cut your losses. If you hold on and the dinar collapses or is devalued, you could wake up and find the investment worth only a fraction of what you hoped. On the other hand, if you cut losses now, you'll incur the loss but prevent further exposure. That's the harsh reality of speculative currency investing, and it underscores our message: hope is not a strategy. In closing, the story of the dinar and the dong in 2025 is less about which one will skyrocket and more about which one might crash. The warning signs are there. The hype is still strong, but hype does not equal safe investment. If an investment sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Protect yourself by diversifying, understanding the risks, limiting exposure, and staying alert. And remember, whether you hold foreign currencies, stocks, real estate, or any asset, focus on fundamentals, not myths. If you found this information useful, please like the video, subscribe for more updates, and drop a comment. Do you believe the dinar or dong will collapse in 2025? Or do you see reasons for optimism? The more informed we all become, the better we'll navigate whatever storm comes. Thanks for watching. Stay cautious, stay diversified, and I'll see you in the next video.